Our guest today is Dale Dye. He's an actor, technical advisor, director, and author. He's also a retired captain in the United States Marine Corps. And after serving during the Vietnam War, he established Riders Emt, the pre-eminent military and training advisory service to the entertainment industry. Dale has worked on more than 50 movies and TV shows, including several Academy Award and Emmy winning productions, such as Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, Casualties of War, JFK, Outbreak, Mission Impossible, Saving Private Ryan, Rules of Engagement, and Band of Brothers. Needless to say, if Hollywood is making a war movie, Dale is there making sure they get it right. When he isn't helping to mold Tom Hanks or Matt Damon into soldiers for the silver screen, he's writing thrillers. His latest, Bangkok File, came out earlier this year. So, boys, let's welcome a real American treasure to the show, Captain Dale Dye. Welcome to the show, Dale. Thanks so much for coming on the Crew Reviews. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a delight. Thanks for having me, guys.
There you go.
I mean, it welcome. Well, we're gonna toast to you, Dale. There you go.
We have to do that.
Absolutely.
So why don't we just get right into it? So Dale, most people know your face and your distinct voice from either television, epic war movies, or even video games. It would be an understatement to say you've been successful in Hollywood, but you also write thrillers, and some pretty damn good ones. So where would you say that the desire to write stories came from?
You know, I've always been a storyteller, guys. I was always that guy in Scouts or in the military that was had everybody around the campfire, and I could tell a shaggy dog story that would last 45 minutes. I mean, I don't know where it comes from exactly, but I've always been a storyteller, and I've always delighted in seeing people's reactions to stories I tell. And along with that, I think that more applies to what I do in movies and television. But along with that, I've been an avid reader all my life. I mean, I'm the guy who can't eat without reading the back of the cereal box. I mean, I'm that guy. And I've always loved thrillers because I think that's a genre in literature that is just replete with great stories.
Yeah,
and usually done by great storytellers. So I really thought, especially after my war, my first one in Southeast Asia, that I had some stories that I wanted to tell, and I wanted to tell to a larger audience. And so I started writing books, frankly, and through some contacts and folks who knew me and had read some of my stuff, said, you've got a talent here. You're facile with words. You know how to tell a story, and you know how to tell it in print as well as orally. So why don't you write some books? And I did. And my first one was a thing called Run Between the Raindrops, which was a memoir about my fighting in the battle for Hue City in Vietnam in Tet of 1968. A pivotal battle and a brutal battle.
Yeah.
That book met with some great reception. So I wrote a couple of others. They didn't meet with such a great reception. And as the years went on, and as I tried more and more, I really became disenchanted, I guess is the best way to say it, with the whole publishing milieu as it reigns supreme in New York.
Right.
In fact, it just sucks like a Hoover vacuum. and writers really don't get their due, especially veteran writers. Unless you're Lee Child or one of the Tom Clancy, one of the well-known guys. And so I said, what I need to do here is I need to start my own publishing company, and the technology will allow a person to do that. And so, as an ancillary of my Warriors Incorporated, which is my consultancy for movies and television, I started Warriors Publishing Group. it was not only to publish my own stuff, although I'm glad we can do that, but we've got something like 23 to 25 titles out there now, including some really great stuff. We got the reprint rights to all of John Del Vecchio's stuff.
Wow.
So we're republishing 13th Valley and Welcome Home and some of his other books. Plus, we've got some great original veterans who are facile writers, who are good writers, good storytellers, and we're publishing them. We're just now this month we'll be bringing out our first book by a female combat veteran, and we're looking for those stories that us military guys really love to read, but they're hard to find in the New York business, in the New York publishing business.
Yeah.
So I decided to hell with all of that and started publishing my own stuff. It's just grown like topsy. It's been terrific stuff.
And just so
I started. I'm sorry, should I go on or should
no? Well, I wanted to point our audience to if they have the opportunity to go to warriorspublishing.com.
Yeah.
And they could see all the authors that you're helping to bring out of the limelight.
Yeah, a ton of titles.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we're doing that because I think, now listen, this is not your vanity press deal, and I won't have any part of that. This is professionally done. We have professional artists that do the covers. We do some of the promotional work, and we make a straight 50-50 split deal with the authors. None of that advanced crapola or any of that business.
Those are
and
scams.
we found that it really, really works well. And most importantly, we found some great authors, some great veterans with stories to tell. But we're not English 101 either. You got to come to us with a good manuscript and a good story. We'll help with polish, but I'm damn sure not going to rewrite you.
Well, you mentioned that you're a natural storyteller, and I think that the three of us that got to spend some time with you at Thriller Fest, that was the first thing we said in describing that incident.
That was in the bar, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was. And you told us a story about how you got your start in Hollywood, which we all loved. Yeah. And I was wondering if you could share at least some version of that with our audience.
All right, see if I can remember what version I told you. But,
so you just come back. It started with you yelling at people on a studio lot.
Yeah, well, look, when I retired from active duty, I was at a bit of a loss on what to do. I mean, I knew that if I became a cop, I'd been shot too many times to go that route. And I knew that if I became a cubicle rat, I'd be a suicide in 6 months. And if I didn't do anything, I would be that barfly that falls off the stool at the VFW. And so I needed something that I could invest in, something that was creative. And I sat down and tried to, decipher what I had to bring to the table, in civilian life. And, civilians are very weird people. I generally hate most of them. And so it's hard to figure out what you're going to do exactly. Yeah. And what I discovered among the few assets that I really had to bring to the table was that I was a war movie fan. I was a movie fan. I mean, I'd seen every war movie there was, I think. And the common denominator was that they all pissed me off because they just didn't represent who we were. They gave this false image of us, full of cliches and stereotypes and so on and so forth. And I had seen the credit crawls that said, somebody's the military technical advisor on this movie. And I said, well, who is that idiot? and how can he screw the pooch this badly? So, when you're ignorant, you can do a lot of things people tell you can't do. And that was certainly my case. So I came to LA, to Hollywood, writ large, and tried to find out, what goes on? What is this movie making business? How do I have some influence on this? And as I said, I had no idea how it all works. So I would start going down to movie lots, Paramount and Warner's and so on and so forth here in LA, and I'd start attacking the first guy I'd see that was walking through the place with a briefcase and a tie, and I'd say, "Hey, you maggot, come here. You make war movies? Well, if you do, you're screwed up, and here's what." And of course, I'd get arrested and thrown off the lot.
Not the first time.
And the neat thing was that most of the security guys were former military, so they had pity on me and didn't lock me up or put me on my face in handcuffs or anything. And so I began to just figure out how the hell movies are made and that sort of thing. And I was lucky through a buddy of mine from Vietnam who was a fine artist. He was working as a storyboard artist here in Hollywood, and he sort of said, "Look, I'm not sure what it is you want to do, but if you want to take a shot at it, I know this guy that I'm doing storyboards for, and it's a director by the name of Tobe Hooper, who was famous for Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a number of other things. And he was doing a remake of a 1950s science fiction movie called Invaders from Mars. And in his remake, the Marines killed the Martians. So he said, look, he's looking for some guy who can teach Marines how to kill Martians. And I said, well, hell, I've got no compunction about killing aliens. Let me see if I can just jump in here. And I talked to the guy, and Toby was a sweetheart. He said, look, you just tell me, how would Marines go about killing Martians? And I said, well, hell, let me invent this. And I did. And I borrowed a bunch of reserve Marines from a local reserve outfit, and they were delighted with the opportunity to be in a movie. Yeah. And so I choreographed Marines killing Martians and that sort of thing, which is, you can invent your own field manual and that sort of thing. But the neat deal was that Toby, who I dearly loved, I'm sorry we've lost him as a filmmaker, but he took pity on me. And he's an old Texas boy, and he said, listen, you want to know how movies work, I'm going to give you your shot, but you got to work for everybody on here. So I went to props, and I went to camera, and I went to electrics, and I went to transportation, and I went to wardrobe, and I learned how movies are made.
One opportunity.
So I had discovered at that point that maybe if I could hit the right button, I might be able to make a difference. I might be able to correct some of that crapola. And what happened essentially was that I had learned to read the trade papers, Daily Variety and that sort of thing. And I came across a small notice that said that a heretofore relatively unknown writer-director by the name of Oliver Stone was going to do a movie based on his own experience as a combat infantryman in Vietnam. And of course, I'd done multiple tours in Vietnam, all on the line, and I knew that war inside and out. Yeah. And so I went through some machinations. I probably told you the rest of this story.
Yes.
Of how I got to Oliver.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting, and it was funny, it was like two dogs from the same neighborhood kind of sniffing each other's butts, we were checking each other's bona fides, and Oliver decided, he listened to me, and I went through this drill of why I thought so many war movies were badly done, and what I thought was the way to fix it. And that, quite simply, is by exposing actors to the realities of who we are, how we think, how we feel, what's in our minds and what's in our hearts and what's in our guts, and how we relate to each other, and that dark humor that you all know about. And so he said, I think maybe you're right. And he gave me 33 actors to take into the mountains of the Philippines and South Central Luzon for 3 weeks, and they lived as we lived as young infantrymen in Vietnam, and I was hard on them. I mean, I was a tough taskmaster, and they got no slack and no outside contact whatsoever. I mean, they ate rations and, took a dump on the back of an e-tool. That's just the way it was. And they dug their own holes and they lived in it.
Total immersion.
Yeah. And when I brought them down out of the mountains, they were who Oliver and I were as 19-year-old young Americans in Southeast Asia. And we put that little film together. We had $5 million all in to do that. And that's chump change these days. And we brought it home, and a film called Platoon. And we won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Oliver. And he was kind enough at the Academy Awards, to which I wore my dress blue uniform.
Yeah.
He was kind enough to recognize me for the contributions I had made to the film.
Gibson, Alex Ho, to Captain Dale Dye, who gave his heart and soul for the movie.
And the rest, as they say, is history. All those guys who were throwing me off the lots were now calling me and saying, "Listen, we've got this picture that we really like here." And now I sit here 51 pictures and television programs later with stuff like Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers in the Pacific.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've kind of become the de rigueur go-to guy in Hollywood, and I have to pinch myself every morning about that.
Yeah.
But the agenda remains the same. And the agenda is simply this, guys, to shine some much deserved and long overdue light on the men and women who wear our uniform. And I'll take any venue I can find to do that. And Warriors Publishing Group and the books I write and the books I publish are all to serve that agenda. I wish you now wish you hadn't asked me that story.
No,
I love it. I hear it every time, man.
No way. So, who's up? Eric?
Sean, did you want? Oh, I thought Sean, you had a follow up.
Oh, yeah, no. But no, I was just going to say, we have something in common. I actually was hired by Toby Hooper to write a script many years ago, and and I concur with everything you said. He's one of the sweetest, kindest men. It was very, very sad that we lost him, but had a lot of fun writing that for him. And nothing ever happened with it, but sure was a great expence.
Yeah, Toby's a great guy. He was a bit into the nose candy at that point.
Yeah,
which is probably why I got away with all I got away with. But he sure was sweet to me.
Yep. Oh, good.
So, Captain, you kind of stole part of my question, but that's okay. I'll ask it a different way and maybe get an answer I didn't expect. So, you've been in some of our greatest films in history. Platoon, Saving Private Ryan, Forrest Gump, different films that, for me and my generation are just iconic that we grew up watching. And you talked a little bit about how you immersed the actors. Is that the difference? Why do the movies that you've been involved with, why do they seem to get it right while so many seem to get it wrong? What's that different factor that you brought to that equation?
Well, I tend to recognize what I call Hollywood hubris. And that is a tendency, I think, on the part of too many writers and directors, or at least it used to be, a tendency on the part of too many writers and directors to feel that nobody who ever wore a uniform could have a creative bone in his body. Because we're all nose pickers and knuckle draggers.
Right.
Or if we weren't, then we'd be making movies like they are.
Crayon eater.
So I knew that was a load of horse crap, and I was out to prove that it was a load of horse crap. And so I don't tolerate that sort of thing. I think the way to go at it, and the way I have come up with going at it, is quite simply to train the actors. Young men, and listen, the business of military service, and especially the business of combat, is so far out of the average young American's realm of experience that you can talk to him all day and tell him stories all day. But if he hasn't experienced something like that, or experienced something that's close to that, it's all going to just kind of go over his head, or in one ear and out the other, because he can't relate to it. So my thought is, well, look, let's give him a way to relate to it. And So I devised a training thing. Well, I devised it. I modified the training that most of us who've been in the military went through.
Yeah.
To sort of reduce them to the lowest common denominator, so they get all the ego and the misconceptions and bad, faulty, stupid ideas from the last bad war movie they saw. I get that out of their mind, and then they're a blank slate. And then I can begin to train them and teach them. And as they go through that process, they experience for real what it is, how they have to rely on each other. The fact that there is a mission, which is more important than them as individuals. And remember, these are young men and women who've grown up as actors, worried about how's my hair and how many lines do I have in the scene and how's the light. So they don't get that bigger picture thing. They don't get that there are things more important than they are. They don't get the relying on people to their right and to their left.
Right.
And so you have to show them the importance of that. And in showing them the importance of that, they begin to get a feel for how us guys and gals in uniform think and how we behave and how we relate to each other. And the more you press them, and look, pressing them, I mean that very literally. I am known for wearing their ass out, and I will. I think that PT is a great leveler.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So I will smoke them, and of course, I have to lead from the front, which is the reason I have to PT myself every day.
Yeah.
But once you do that, all of the nonsense goes away, and you've got that blank slate. You've got that dry sponge, and whatever you pour on that sponge, it begins to swell, and it begins to become something that's useful. And I guess that metaphor works. But at any rate, what happens is they begin to understand. They get a deep understanding. And all the stuff that used to be taught by military guys, technical advisors, I hate that word. We're military advisors, not technical advisors.
Right.
All of that stuff about, how to carry your weapon and how to wear your uniform. Look, you can teach a monkey to do that. And I do that so that becomes muscle memory, and they don't have to think about that. It's just automatic to them.
Right.
And so now they can concentrate on acting. They can concentrate on helping to tell the story.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? Or am I
Yeah,
off on another
absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Damn right it does. I was only a few months out of Marine Corps OCS myself back in '86 when the movie Platoon came out. It was only a few months after that. And first time I saw that one was a little theater in Columbia, Missouri, not too far from your boyhood hometown there, Cape Girard. Something I don't think people really realize is that you came out with the book Platoon based off of the screenplay. And it was the same year. So how the hell did you do both of those things at the same time?
I'm facile.
Yeah.
Oliver, and I'm a multitasker. Oliver knew that I was a storyteller, and he had in fact read my first novel, Run Between the Raindrops. And he said, if anybody knows how to tell this story in novel form, which publishers were screaming for because Platoon was such a huge hit around the world. He said, you do. Will you do it? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. How much time have I got? And he said, about 3 weeks. And fortunately, I'm really fast. Listen, I piss authors off right and left because I write from A to Z. I sit down and tell a story, and that's what I do. I don't go back a lot and agonize over it and intellectualize over it. I simply tell the damn story, and that's what I did with Platoon, and it became a huge, almost as big a hit in its own milieu as Platoon was.
Yeah, no doubt. So you definitely are a storyteller, and so you have a line of books out with Marine Gunny Shake Davis. He's the protagonist in your
I really like
series. So I mean, and this is the latest one that's out. Bangkok File. It came out earlier this year.
And the newest one will be out Memorial Day next year.
What's the title of that one?
Delta File.
He wrote it yesterday afternoon.
We're gonna write it down. Yeah, on the way to the dentist.
So can you give us some insight into what makes the Gunny tick, and how much of him is you and you him?
Well, look, I think that every writer uses his own experience and his own viewpoint, and so on and so forth, in telling a story in some fashion, some more than others. But I am the world's biggest Lee Child Jack Reacher fan. I mean, listen, that guy could write a phone book on toilet paper and I'd buy it and read it. You know, I mean, it's just, he's the kind of character building storyteller that I love.
Right.
And so I had read him and Clancy and a number of others that have recurring characters. And I said, I think what's needed here is for me to do that. And so I came up with the Shake Davis character. His real name is Sheldon, but he hates it. So, and I borrowed the NMI, no middle initial, from Lee, and started writing these stories. And I needed a hook. Listen, there is just a metric crap load of thriller series out there.
Yeah.
So I wanted a hook. So I hadn't found one that involved a Marine. So I said, okay, here we go. I make this guy a retired Marine gunner. And I was a Marine gunner for a while before I got my regular commission, a warrant officer. And I said, the hook is that this guy's adventures are going to lead him in every story to some facet of Marine Corps history. And for instance, in Bangkok File, the most recent one, he revisits his time during the Maya Boys rescue and the ill-fated assault on Koh Tang Island. So that's part of Marine Corps history. In other files, he goes to Mexico City and views where the battle took place, the halls of Montezuma, and the battle at Chapultepec. So that's the hook. And in each book, he revisits something that happened in he somehow connects with something that happens happened in Marine Corps history.
So you're entertaining and teaching.
Right.
What's that?
You're entertaining and teaching at the same time.
I guess. I hope I'm entertaining more than teaching, because if Marines who love these books don't know their Marine Corps history, then they badly need an ass kicking anyway. So. or they just can't read.
Yeah. Well, what usually happens with something like that is someone who is a non-Marine who picks it up and reads it, and they get that little snippet of history. A lot of times they'll seek that out and try to learn more about that episode. So I think that's kind of what Chris is getting at. I bet you anything, a good portion of your readers are going to seek out more information about the historical events that you're referencing.
Yeah, in fact, I just got an email today from a guy in Maine who's a deputy sheriff, I guess, and he loves the Shake Davis series, the File series of books. And he said that he read Bangkok File and he had started looking up the whole Koh Tang incident, the whole Maya Boys incident, and he was just fascinated with it. Of course, the problem was that he asked me about 96 questions that he expects me now to sit down and answer. And I guess I will. I mean, I'm that guy. So.
Well, I know we're bouncing back and forth between books and film, but I want to kind of go back to one of the main themes of your whole career is accuracy. You were a combat correspondent, I know you were driven to accurately report what you could about what the grunts were going through, and that was important to you. And then you've transitioned into making sure our movies are more accurate and better. So you can't be a military advisor to every movie. So there's plenty of movies out there screwing everything up. And my question is,
sure.
And I know there's a long laundry list of things that they get wrong, but if you had to pick one thing that drives you crazy every time you see a movie that's wrong, what is that thing?
Well, you got to kind of have to separate out genres here.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I hate it when people fire shoulder weapons and don't use the sights. They've got their head up so that the camera will get a good look at their mug, and they're not using the sights. That bothers the hell out of me. I hate it when they just, when everything is a full automatic deal and they just rip off, because you never see them reload. So where'd all that ammo come from?
Yeah.
I hate it when hand grenades, and this is, I don't care what era, when a hand grenade looks like a nuclear explosion. And you see the mushroom cloud over a simple hand grenade that somebody threw, and I hate that. I hate to see flames in high explosive, because anybody who's had rounds come in on them, artillery or mortar, knows that there isn't any flame in it. It's just a big black puff. I hate it when actors think that it's more dramatic to do the funky chicken when they get hit. Look, the plain fact of the matter is, and the dramatic element of it is, when a guy's hit and when he goes down, it's just like cutting the strings on a puppet. He's just down. And that's the drama to me, and that's the drama to anybody who's seen it, is how quickly life can be extinguished. So I hate all this screaming mama and throwing your hands around and doing the pee-pee dance. I mean, that bothers me. I hate it when an actor covers 5 feet to get into a new position, and when he's in that new position, he's breathing hard. Somehow they think that brings drama to the situation. Christ, if you're in that bad a shape, what the hell are you doing in combat? So I guess I covered a small element of the things that piss me off, but there you go.
That's a good list, and it's
I try
very
to
entertaining.
correct those things in my films.
Yeah.
Very good. So staying with talking about films and just staying with Oliver Stone. Clearly, if we look at your filmography list, you worked with Oliver on quite a lot of his movies. Can you just, briefly tell us about what your relationship was like with him, and have you maintained that? Have you kept in touch with him over the years?
Oliver and I are still friends, still close friends.
Good.
We are, however, the world's most politically opposed individual.
Really?
No.
Oh yeah. Seriously. On sets, they used to call me John Wayne and Oliver Ho Chi Minh. So that'll kind of
Brutal.
give you a look at how we go. But the thing is, we I think we love each other, and so we put that aside.
It's like family, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like family. Yeah, it comes out when Oliver wants to feel curmudgeonly and piss and moan at somebody, and I'm always available. So he does that. But I generally, take the high road. I don't attack back. I just look at him wisely down my nose, like, boy, are you a dumbass? And it all works out, and we understand it. But I've done a lot of films with him, and he always puts me in them. And so I've really enjoyed my relationship with him. And Lord knows, if it weren't for Oliver, my career, I don't know whether it would have ever launched into what it's become.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to him.
Yeah.
And I hope he knows that.
Yeah. That more of that's needed. More of the people who disagree vehemently about subjects but can still have relationships. I mean, that's in this day and age, that's rare. It seems like so many people
No kidding.
basing their friendships on who they agree with. So that's awesome.
Look, you got to tolerate people. I think those of us who've worn a uniform know that. There are wonderful people, and then there are complete shitbirds, and you just have to get along with both of them. I guess I'm not allowed to say shitbirds, but I did.
Oh, you sure you can.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Yeah. Damn right you can.
There's no FCC here.
Our kids don't watch this.
You have to learn to tolerate people.
Yes.
It's so funny. We use that word shitbird all the time in law enforcement. So Dale, let me ask you, Like Sean said, we were jumping back and forth between film and stories in the publishing world. And Hollywood and the publishing world, in like New York and LA, they're different animals. What would you say was the harder one to crack, Hollywood or publishing?
Hollywood. Publishing, once you realize that it's going to suck seriously, and you're willing to sell your soul, New York, you can crack it. And New York will allow itself to be cracked because they know that they can whip a book out there and put absolutely no publicity behind it, no anything else, and they have complied with their contract with you.
Yeah.
And that book, without any support from the publisher, has to sell who knows how many copies before it's paid back that miserly advance that they've given you. So New York's got the clean end of the stick, and you get the other end of the stick. In Hollywood, it's a little more desperate. I mean, there are hundreds of people that crawl off a Greyhound bus in downtown LA every day, and they all want to be the next great actor. They all want to be the next great writer. They all want to be the next great director or cinematographer. And this town eats its young. It's brutal.
Yeah.
And they don't care because there's somebody right behind you that's probably just as talented, just as motivated, and get out of here and there you go. And frankly, what disappoints me is that I see so many really nice, good, solid young men and women that come out here and just get ruined. Their self-confidence gets trampled on to the extent that, you know, a young gal who's trying to be an actress, a beautiful young gal, can walk into so many auditions, and you know people will tell you, yeah, you're okay, but you're ugly. Get out of here. And that happens about 10 times a day, and you know her self-confidence just goes right in the tank.
Yeah.
And then you know she starts self-medicating, and really her life, or her outlook on life, I think. The Germans call it Weltschmerz. I think that gets ruined, and that's brutal. And Hollywood's very good at being brutal in that regard.
Yeah. So with everything that you've accomplished in entertainment on both spectrums, what hill haven't you taken yet that's still on your to-do list?
Well, I want to do some of my own stories. I've got a film working now. Fortunately, Tom Hanks has signed on to be the executive producer. It's a World War II story. If you saw Saving Private Ryan, with the beach assault, this is going to be the airborne assault that took place hours before they hit the beaches at Utah and Omaha. So I want to do that one, and I wrote it, and I want to direct it. So
you have four recruits right here, sir.
I'll be a dead body.
We're there.
I'm dead body right now, and I need a big name for the lead, and then the money will flow. Yeah. So I want to do that. I have always felt that in my young years as a Marine, the guys who taught me how to stay alive and how to succeed were Korea veterans, and I've always felt that Korea, the war in Korea, got short shrift in motion pictures.
Sure did.
And so I have a Korea miniseries, kind of on the it's kind of like Band of Brothers except in Korea, and I want to do that one, and then Lord knows, guys, I'll probably collapse and be dead, and that'll be enough. So
no.
Well, listen, we're going to continue talking. I want to continue talking about films because we all love the war films. We love watching them. We're entertained by them. Your latest one, I know it's been pushed back a little bit, but your latest one, The Last Full Measure, it's scheduled to be released January 17th, 2020.
Yeah, great story.
Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah. Sure. It's a story about love, frankly. The love that those of us who've served together in combat understand on a very deep level. It concerns the efforts of a bunch of veterans, Army veterans, of the 1st Infantry Division, to get the Medal of Honor for an Air Force PJ, an Air Force pararescueman, who dropped down into a terrible battle in 1966, and rather than, and he evacuated some of their wounded, but rather than leave the other wounded that the helicopter couldn't carry and fly out of there, a guy by the name of Pitzenbarger stayed. And he took care of their wounded, and he called in more medevacs. And he when it got desperate, Pitzenbarger went out and tried to retrieve a couple of wounded soldiers, and he was killed. And those soldiers from that unit never forgot what he did, and they started their own petition, their own efforts to get him the Medal of Honor. He had been given the Air Force Cross, but they thought he deserved the Medal of Honor, and they were going to have nothing less. And so for years and years and years and years after the incident, they came together and they said, we're going to petition Congress. We're going to do everything we can. And the story involves those efforts. And a congressional aide played by Sebastian Stan is kind of their go-to guy. And he doesn't want any part of this. All he's worried about is his next job and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But as he begins to investigate, he discovers that love, and he sees how deep it is, and he sees what an emotional thing it is. And so he enlists, he helps them. And they finally do manage to get Pitzenbarger the Medal of Honor. And that story touched me deeply. Todd Robinson, who directed it, was familiar with my work, and he came to me and he said, Dale, I need you to help me do this, not only to get the combat stuff right, but to have an understanding of this intense emotional relation that people form in combat, right, and that they retain for years and years after. And I spent a lot of time talking to Todd and to the actors about this thing. And as we went along, Todd said, listen, they find a guy in Congress, an old veteran congressman who's willing, a senator, I think he is, who's willing to take this on and willing to help them out. And he said, you're just old and cranky and weird enough to play that guy. And so he cast me in that role, and I have a little shot in the movie, but it's got some great characters.
Who are some of the characters? Who is some of the?
You as a politician sounds awful.
Yeah, and weird. I never got that gay hairdresser role or any of that stuff. Always that guy, that white hair. Go get me that white-haired guy or somebody like Di. But anyway, Sam Jackson's in it, and just a cast of great actors. I mean, I'm having trouble recalling all of them now, but it was a delight to work with. All old veteran Hollywood guys. They knew their way around.
Nice.
So you've been in quite a lot of movies, quite a lot of famous movies, even if it was a small part. And this is a tough question, I know, but if you're going to be remembered for one part you played in one movie, what would that movie be? And why would you want to be remembered for that one part?
I'll give you two answers here.
Fair enough. Sir, you can answer however you'd like.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. After all, it's my interview. You guys
exactly. Right. I don't want to do push-ups either. So.
Listen, I think I'd like to be remembered for playing Colonel Bob Sink in Band of Brothers.
Nothing less than an active mutiny while we prepare for the goddamn invasion of Europe. Sergeant Harris.
Sir.
Turn in your stripes, collect your gear. You are hereby transferred out of my regiment.
Sir.
Get out. Sergeant Ranny.
Sir.
You consider yourself lucky I'm only busting you to private. All of you NCOs have disgraced the 101st Airborne. You can consider yourself lucky that we are on the eve of the largest action in the history of warfare, which leaves me no choice but to spare your lives. Now get out of my office and get out of my sight. Get.
Yeah.
That was a delight to do.
Yeah.
And I love to do real characters, so I can study them. And for instance, with Sink, he was dead at the time we were making Band of Brothers, but his family was kind enough to send me some recordings of speeches he'd made.
Wow.
And I walked around with earphones on and listened to him so that I could get that North Carolina drawl that he typically has. And I love that kind of thing. And bringing him to life once again on the screen was fun. I also I did a movie with Tom Berenger and Sam Elliott called Rough Riders for TNT, and it was about the Rough Riders. Teddy Roosevelt. Tom Berenger played Teddy Roosevelt, and I was able to play Leonard Wood, who was the, as in Fort Leonard Wood,
right?
Who was the original commanding officer of the Rough Riders, and Teddy Roosevelt was his number 2, his executive officer.
And it was your plan that had him coal his warships and be ready to sail for Manila Bay?
Secretary Long was on vacation in New England.
And you took the initiative?
I suppose so. But that Commodore Dewey was like a wolfhound slipped from the leash, wasn't he, Leonard?
I suppose he was, Theodore. And Roosevelt is like a young second lieutenant, often overreaching, frequently insubordinate, brash, but successful. This time, don't try it with me.
Yes, sir.
Now, I leave for San Antonio tomorrow morning. But Theodore, we will not get to Cuba unless we have Krag smokeless repeating carbines. Don't come to San Antonio without them. Do I make myself clear?
Precisely, sir.
Oh, and one more thing. The regiment has been expanded. You may bring your Fifth Avenue contingent.
Oh!
Hamilton Fish's mother should be delighted.
Bully!
Colonel! I didn't catch that salute.
And he was an old Apache Indian fighter, and a really interesting guy. And so I guess you know, when I have to eat the dirt sandwich, that you know, he was Colonel Sink and he was Leonard Wood would probably be epitaphed sufficiently.
Well, I'll say I love your answer because I have all the Stephen Ambrose books, and Band of Brothers is probably I've got them all on my shelf over here, and Band of Brothers is probably my favorite. It's definitely my favorite series, but just one of my favorite reenactions of what our soldiers went through.
Yeah, we did it right.
Absolutely. So
and that's why it was so successful. It pulled the viewers in. I mean, you felt like you were there with the guys.
Yeah,
all the emotion,
I felt like I understood World War II a little better by just watching that.
Yeah, and we focused tightly enough. One company, Easy Company, second of the 506, that you could over a period of 10 episodes, the audience really got to know and love those guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so they were emotionally invested, I think. And when we did the Pacific, we kind of screwed the pooch. We overshot the mark on that one. We had way too many characters, and you didn't get to know enough of them, I think.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about why one connected with me more than the other, but that's exactly why.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Easy Company. I mean, I wouldn't know Easy Company except for seeing that, knowing about those guys.
Yeah.
That was one of the most perfectly cast television shows or movies ever. I mean, it was just perfectly cast.
Yeah, Meg Lieberman cast it, and she's got guts. She wasn't afraid to cast unknown actors if they were right.
Right.
And she did that, and including this lunatic. But
they got it right.
Yeah, they got it.
But the neat thing was they all delivered. I mean, I trained them for 3 weeks before we went. And interestingly, I trained an entire unit of Germans before I trained the Americans. Because I always believe that one of the big problems with military movies, war movies in particular, is at the end of it, nobody pays any attention to the enemy. they're just cartoon cutouts, you know,
Right.
something that you can shoot at and turn into a pink mist. And anybody who's ever fought an enemy in one of our wars knows that they're sharp and they'll kill you, and they're deadly. And so I've always thought that, you know, the jeopardy is seriously ratcheted up if you'll let me train the enemy, so that, you know,
true.
they're not pushovers.
Yeah.
And I did that with Band of Brothers. I did that with the Pacific. I did that with Heaven and Earth, where I trained a unit of Viet Cong. And so I think those things ratchet up the jeopardy, and therefore ratchet up the audience involved.
I think a few new guys in Platoon did okay too after the fact.
Yeah, not bad.
I always think about when we were PTing. We did a lot of PT with the Secret Service. The one scene, Band of Brothers, where they're still in basic, and they're getting their spaghetti meal, and they're chowing down on all the spaghetti, and then they got to go run up
And
that
go
hill.
run curry.
David
I've
Schwimmer's
run
leading them.
curry. Have you?
What's that?
I've run curry.
Oh no, I haven't run that. No.
It is what we call the ass kicker. 3 up, 3 down. But
Oh man,
Brutal stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, we're going to switch gears a little bit, Dale. We're going to go into what the boys we like to call the lightning round. We like to tell our guests we don't put a lot of thought into our questions, so we don't expect you to put a lot of thought into your answers.
Okay.
And so it's really for shits and giggles.
All right.
And so we're gonna fire off some questions. We'll all take turns.
Shoot.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start off first. What's the greatest war movie of all time?
Boy, you've got to separate them into genres, in periods.
Right.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite World War II movie, though?
Boy, that's a tough one. I've got so many of them. I don't know. Pass. Move on to the next one.
Yeah. So the
Our first pass ever.
And we're going to let him pass.
And
can
he's
go
gonna
ahead.
pass.
But I do want to ask one question. Pearl Harbor, the most recent one with Ben Affleck. What did you think of that one? Okay, we're gonna go on. So,
Question
what advice? I shouldn't have said it.
Absolute and utter nonsense.
Yep.
Of course.
It had a huge puke factor, about a +4 puke factor. It's an embarrassment.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Chris, get
Yeah.
back on track. for
I know. I'm
God's
gonna
sake.
get back on track. I'm sorry.
Don't upset him.
Keep the guest happy.
So, Dale, what advice would you give? Excuse me, young men or women enlisting in the Marine Corps today? What advice would you give?
Always have a sense of humor cranked up. A sense of humor, a sense of ironic, who'd ever believe this crap, will get you through a lot of it.
Yeah.
You've got to have persistence. You've got to have tenacity. It is good to approach anything you do thinking that you have to earn it and that nobody owes you a damn thing.
Amen.
And
That's right.
if you're willing to do that, and if you have tenacity and you have courage, and those two frequently go hand in hand, if you have those things, it is indeed true that you can do damn near anything.
Right on.
I'm an example for it. Yeah.
So, if there's one thing in the world that Dale Dye doesn't do, it's this. What is it? What's the one thing you don't do?
If there's one thing I what?
Don't do.
What do you don't do? Absolutely.
I don't cry the poor ass. I think that's unbecoming. I've always been a true believer in some of the words from our Marines hymn. You want to be the first to fight for right and freedom, and you want to keep your honor clean. And I try very hard to do that. I try to be as honest as a guy who writes fictional stories as fictional movies can be. But I think there is. I think that I don't want to be just another flack out there. You know, I want to do things that explain to the world that human beings are inherently good. You've got to overlook some of the bad, but they're inherently good. And I think that's a message that I like to convey. And so I don't want to be the guy who doesn't do that. That's a roundabout way of answering it.
Right.
Oh, that's
Great
actually
answer.
a perfect answer. And my last question, what's the most important thing in your bug out bag? What do you got in there?
Probably Joseph Heller's Catch-22.
Really?
Really? I would never pick that.
No.
Yeah, of course you
would.
would. You think I'm going to go with water purification tablets or diarrhea stuff, or a big knife or something.
Yeah,
Well,
right
I
on.
didn't make all that crap. But Heller's book, Catch-22, is one I've carried around in my rucksack for years on active duty. I've got about 4 copies of it, and they're all falling apart. But I just love the humor in it.
Right.
And I love the characters are absolutely absurd, except that I've met some of them, I think. But I think I would carry that to reassure myself that human beings are fallible, that almost everything in one fashion or another is a catch-22. And once I light a fire bright enough to give me light, I'd spend a lot of time reading that, I think.
Nice.
There you go.
That's cool.
All right, Eric.
I am up. Okay, so Captain, you get done with our podcast today and your phone rings 2 times in a row. First call's from Steven Spielberg. Second call's from Oliver Stone. They both want you in a movie. Unfortunately, they want to start on the same day, so you're going to have to tell one of them no. Who are you telling?
Boy, that
yes?
really sucks.
No, who are you going to tell
Horrible
yes?
problem.
Oh, you know, I'd have to listen to both pitches.
Yeah.
You'd have to get the
And
pitches,
the bitch kitty of it all would be, both of them would expect me to leap at their project to the exclusion of the other one.
There's your Catch-22.
I think at this point I'd probably go with Spielberg.
Okay.
All right.
So what is your next question? What is your go-to drink?
Well, guys, look, I'm a bourbon guy. So I've been, you know, they've been experimenting with craft bourbons around the area.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I found one. My wife and I have a retirement home in Lockhart, Texas, which is just south of Austin, and where I'm going to go once I finish all these projects. And I discovered down there a thing called TX bourbon. Boy, I'm telling you. An ice cube and a dirty glass, and I'm in great shape. Look, I've spent a lot of my life drinking warm gin out of a sea ration can with a pubic hair floating in it.
Not picky.
So
this is an upgrade.
Yeah, it's an upgrade. And so now I'm a bourbon guy, and any good Kentucky bourbon.
That's their next commercial. TX bourbon, better than warm gin and a pubic chair.
Oh, there goes a run on their whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely got to do it.
So you've trained a pretty incredible list of actors. Which one of the actors that you've worked with would actually, in real life, probably make a damn good soldier?
Well, there's a couple of them. Tom Berenger would have made an excellent soldier.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Elliott would have been a good soldier. Believe it or not, Tom Cruise, who I trained.
He's a great athlete. Yeah.
Yeah, Born on the 4th of July. He's got a huge heart. The guy, nothing makes him stop.
Yeah.
And I like that, and I appreciate that. And in fact, Tom's kind of a friend. He let me play his father in a film called Night and Day, Knight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm his dad.
This was one of his safe houses, wasn't it?
What the hell are you talking about?
Him and Cameron Diaz, I think, right?
Yeah, Cameron Diaz.
Which was
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Cameron Diaz, yeah. So Cool.
So there are a few of them that really get it about it not being all about them, and get that there's a larger thing, a mission out there. And in that case, it's a story that they want to tell, and they act accordingly. You wouldn't believe this, but Willem Dafoe, who's a weird duck in a lot of ways, would have made a good soldier.
Would have made a good soldier.
Yeah, he came across excellent.
Yeah. You have one book on your nightstand right now. What is that book?
And it's not Catch-22.
Yeah, besides Catch-22.
What the hell was I just? I like everything Hunter Thompson has ever written.
Okay.
I was privileged to meet him once, or at least I think I did. We were both anyway.
He thought you were Pink Panda.
But I love all his Gonzo stuff, and in fact, I try to copy it in some of the things I write. So on my nightstand right now, though, happens to be an old book by Mike Hare called Dispatches, and I'm rereading it, and the fact that I'm in it
doesn't
is
hurt.
handy.
That always helps.
That's not bad.
but it's about, there's a big part of it about the battle for Hue, and I knew Mike in Hue.
Awesome.
So that's what's on my nightstand.
Cool.
But you know what really blows? Guys send me books, and I'm such an idiot. I probably don't like it, and I don't want to read it. But if I've started it, I feel duty bound to finish it.
Finish it. Yeah.
And it clogs up my reading process.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
unfortunate. Sometimes you got
I
to put a
just
book
feel like
down.
if he sent it to me, I ought to at least read it.
Read the first chapter and last chapter.
Yeah, I know. There's people have suggested all kinds of ways around that, but I always feel bad. So I just read the damn thing and then throw it away.
Well, Mike, you're up.
All right. Driven to change Hollywood's portrayal of the military in general, how much did the movie Heartbreak Ridge piss you off?
I gotta review this.
Is that Eastwood?
Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The portrayal of the
Quite
Marines
a
was
bit,
just awesome.
actually, and it's a shame because I really like Clint. He gave me some of the best advice about aging I've ever had. But I really thought, somebody talked Clint into going way over the top in that film, and Marines hate it.
Yeah.
And I just barely tolerated it. And I haven't said anything to Clint, by the way.
He won't watch this.
But he gave me some great advice about aging. He said, you're gonna wake up in the morning, and you're gonna hurt here and hurt there, and you don't want to get out of bed, and you're thinking, why the hell should I anyway? And he said, you know what that is? That's the old man knocking on your door. So what you do is you don't let the bastard in. Never let the old man in. And
Nice.
He was dead right.
That's good
dead
advice.
right.
Man, that is so true.
I just turned 75 and I'm still out. I got to run 5 miles tomorrow and do a bunch of PT.
God bless
I'm
you.
nuts.
That's how you stay young.
The old mind is gone.
That's how you stay
That's how
young.
you stay young. All right. What famous historical Marine Corps battle before your time would you like to go back to and be a part of?
I would have liked to have been part of the stand on Wake Island. I've been on Wake Island.
Wow.
And I think that was an extraordinary stand. Undergunned, undermanned, facing destroyers and cruisers at sea and sinking a couple of them.
Yeah.
And, with the old tin pipelet helmets and just knowing this was not going to turn out well.
Yeah.
But fighting it anyway. I think I'd like to have been at Wake Island.
All right. All right. So besides yourself, who is your favorite military author?
Well, it kind of depends on what your what you're talking about, fiction or nonfiction, but I like James Jones. I like Heller. I think those guys had a grip on it.
Yeah.
I love On Combat and On Killing in nonfiction. There's some real great thinking that went into that one.
Okay.
That's Dave Grossman, by the way. So
I put it up just for you, actually. I have it right behind my shelf. Oh, glare is killing it, but
yeah, you should read it.
Yeah.
All right. My next question: M14 or M16?
If you're talking about the early iteration of the 16, that makes a good boat anchor. So I was always a 14 guy, and I can remember being in units where we would actually change our locations so that the ordnance guys couldn't catch up with us and issue us the 16s.
Yeah,
we heard all that shit. And but when they brought out the A2, it was a better weapon, I think. And so it's okay. I don't like the 5.56 as a combat caliber.
Right.
And I think it kind of has some of the problems, some of the K factor, kinetic factor problems that the M1 carbine had in World War II in Korea. So I guess I would have to say M14.
Yeah, I love that one too. All right, my last question is when you're spending time in Hollywood, how many times a day do you kill people in your head?
An even dozen, easy.
All right. It's just average.
And on a good day, a couple of dozen.
All right, I'm up last. So if one of the crew members here interviewing you was, say, a member of SAG, could you get him on your next film?
It depends.
Don't hire Sean.
Can he find his ass with a 10-man working party? I mean,
yes, he can.
Make a great bloated dead body. Yeah.
6'5", 240.
Yeah, there's always need for dead bleeding bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's Eric. That's Eric after this interview. Yeah. So this is not. I'm not asking you the best war movie, but what was your favorite war movie when you were a kid?
I loved submarine movies. I liked Run Silent, Run Deep. I absolutely loved From Here to Eternity. I remember seeing To Hell and Back, Audie Murphy.
Yeah.
That's full of such horrible technical problems, but I liked the character. I liked Audie and what he went through and so on and so forth. But I think I guess Run Silent, Run Deep. The Bridges of Toko-Ri, I love that. And From Here to Eternity is just at old school 25th Infantry Division, Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. Absolute magic.
Awesome. All right, so they are casting Dale Dye, the Vietnam years. Who plays Dale Dye?
I don't know, some tall, skinny weirdo that that's just got off the Greyhound in L.A. Central Station, and he's from Southeast Missouri, and he's just barely literate, and standing there picking his nose, and get that guy.
I would say even though he's not an American, I think Ryan Reynolds would play him pretty good.
I don't know. I saw Midway the other day, and Woody Harrelson, I think, stole my look.
Yeah, he did.
You know what? I didn't
even
see
him with that white hair.
He looks just like you with all that thrown on there.
That's funny. All right, who was either your favorite or the greatest military commander in history?
Well, there's a pot full of them. It ain't MacArthur. I love. Let's see. I think Omar Bradley's terrific. as opposed to, say, in comparison to George Patton.
Right.
I love, I like an old Marine called Lou Diamond, who was a master gunnery sergeant. He never was a commander of anything much more than a mortar platoon, but he was a real character, and I love him. I like Chesty Puller, of course.
Yeah, you have to.
I think he's that kind of guy. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. You probably wouldn't be surprised to know that, with the exception maybe of Bradley, that they're really famous ones.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not surprised by that. All right, my last question. Sergeant Barnes or Sergeant Elias? Who do you want leading you into battle?
Probably Barnes.
Yeah.
Right up until the time when he goes nuts.
Yeah.
And then I kill him and I call in Elias. That solves that.
Solid answer.
And that, sir, is the end of the lightning round.
Oh,
He survives.
You did survive. You have a good time, Dale?
Yeah, it's fun. I do more of these things than I have no idea why people keep calling me to do these sort of things, but they're fun. They're nice. They're a nice venue, just to, as you say. It's like sitting next to you with a hit of bourbon on ice and just talking about weird stuff. And as long as the interviewers don't take themselves too seriously, and clearly you guys don't, and for good reason.
Oh no, there's no reason to.
There's no good reason.
There's no good reason.
There's no reason. But boys, let's raise a glass to Dale Dye.
Yeah.
For his service to our country,
Absolutely.
to the industry in Hollywood, and to the book writing community. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Dale.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks for sticking around for another great episode of the Crew Reviews podcast. I want to thank our guest tonight, Captain Dale Dye, whose latest book, Bangkok File, is available everywhere. So go out and buy it. And you can see Dale back in action when The Last Full Measure hits theaters on January 17th, 2020. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button below, and we'd love to hear from you. So leave a comment. Have a great day, everyone. We can't wait to see you on the next Crew Reviews podcast. Boys, another good one.
Great.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Salud.
Did your parents have any children that lived?
That's a brilliant observation, actually, despite the fact that it's from you. But,
He's part of the crew.
Yeah, I love it. He's right in there.
and boy, that was enough to gag a maggot. I mean, there were.
There's nothing wrong with being from Jersey.
Yeah. I just have one token Jersey guy in the show.
If you say so.
I had to move away.
I had to move.
I had to move, you know?
Cops.
You know what I'm
The
saying.
helicopters and everything. It was all over the place. Let me know when it's up, and we'll take another look at it. And you guys are good interviewers. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think that's terrific. And as I said, guys, this was fun. This wasn't a pain in the ass at all.